I'm Adam Riley. Tonight on Greater Boston, in an effort to help more displaced people resettle in the U.S., the Biden administration is inviting people like you and me to directly sponsor the arrival of refugees in our communities. It's modeled after a program already underway for people fleeing Ukraine. One member of that program, who's now settled in New England, will join me ahead. Then, revolutions in AI are threatening the world of academia as we know it. We'll take a look at ChatGPT and the very real repercussions it's having for colleges in Boston and beyond. When Russia invaded Ukraine nearly a year ago, millions were forced to flee the country, and since then, several thousand of them have come to the U.S. That includes Alexandra Chepenko, who came to New England last fall, along with her son, thanks to a program called Uniting for Ukraine. It was first launched last April and allows Ukrainian refugees to come to the U.S. for up to 2 years with regular Americans serving as sponsors. Now, the Biden administration is expanding on the idea behind the Uniting for Ukraine program with the newly announced Welcome Corps, which will allow citizen sponsors for refugees coming from other countries as well.
The Welcome Corps is the boldest innovation in the U.S. refugee resettlement in 4 decades, and it reflects the Biden administration's commitment to expand community engagement as we rebuild our refugee program.
Alexandra Chepenko joins me now, along with Jessica Cerrone, the Director of Strategic Program Initiatives at the International Institute of New England, an organization that helps immigrants and refugees resettling in New England. Thank you both for being here. Alexandra, you have had a very long journey to get to this point where you're sitting here talking with us today. You've gone from Kharkiv to Bulgaria to Wakefield, and now you are settled in Lowell. How did you get connected with the sponsor who enabled you to go from Bulgaria to the United States?
Well, thank you for inviting me to this studio. I'm really happy to share my experience with other Ukrainians and other Americans who probably want to help more refugees, more immigrants like me. So, I had a friend in Ukraine who married a U.S. citizen 2 years ago, just before the COVID, and she moved to the U.S. We started together in university, and then I hired her to work at our publishing house in Ukraine. She was a translator, English translator. And when she heard this terrible news about Russian attacks, of course, she wrote to me, she called me, and asked me, what can I do for you? Can I help you somehow? Well, at that time, I didn't plan to come to the US, but anyway, she tried to help me how she could. And we decided with my family to go to Bulgaria and to spend summer there because of my son, for him to be in the seaside because he has some health problems. That's why we choose Bulgaria. And it was a hard trip. My city, Kharkiv, is situated in the northeastern part of Ukraine. And it took us 1 week, almost, to get from eastern border to the western border of Ukraine, to the border with Romania. And our car broke on the way. Well, it was a really long, stressful trip that I won't forget. I'm
sorry to jump in, but I just want to ask you. So when we talked earlier today, if I'm correct, you said to me you have a couple friends who are competitive chess players, and they were able to put you in touch with the man who ended up sponsoring you to come here, who's also a competitive chess player, but is really, he's a friend of friends, but not someone that you know directly or knew directly, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I've never met this generous person before, and he was even not so close with my friends, with Katerina Odnorozhenko and Denis Shmelyov. They were not so close, but one day Katerina won a championship, and he sponsored a prize for women championships. And he asked her, where is she from? And she answered, I'm from Ukraine. And then he suggested his help to any people in need who she know. And she,
go ahead. Sorry, finish the thought.
That's why, and she told him about me, and after that, when he suggested kindly his help, she again reached out to me and said, okay, Alexandra, now there is a program, Uniting for Ukraine, and there is a person ready to support you, because, well, my resources were really limited, and I couldn't afford myself to buy tickets for people to get from Bulgaria to Turkey, Istanbul, and then from Istanbul to Boston.
And that's obviously incredibly expensive travel. And then I believe he also had to help you get an apartment, right? Provide the funding necessary to get an apartment.
Yeah.
Am I correct there?
Yes. First couple of months I spent in my Ukrainian friend's house in Wakefield, and then, well, things changed, so I received a job offer, and then I moved to Lowell. So now I stay in Lowell.
Let's get you in here, Jessica. As this story highlights, it seems to me, just from outside the world that you operate in, that there are a number of different actors that can play a role depending on the particular situation, depending on the programs that are at play. There's the federal government, state government, organizations like yours, and the one that Alexandra now works for. And then there are individuals, good-hearted benefactors, men and women who decide to take on this responsibility. How is the Biden administration's new proposal going to shift the balance between those various parties that's existed before?
Yeah, you're right. There are numerous people involved in resettling people and bringing people to the U.S., even when it was a traditional resettlement program. So traditionally, a U.S.-based resettlement agency would bring people from abroad, from a country over. They would sponsor them in the way that they have typically done it and bring them over through a resettlement process, through a U.S. resettlement program. That's been happening since the resettlement program launched in the U.S., and it hasn't changed very much until recently. There had been some community sponsorship programs which are affiliated with resettlement agencies but were not operating separately. So in the last year or so, with the start of the evacuation of Afghans, during that crisis, there really launched a lot of community sponsorship programs that were kind of through a community-led sponsorship, which were operating sort of separately from the traditional resettlement agencies and kind of under umbrella nonprofit organizations. And then there's also community sponsorship programs which are being led through resettlement agencies, just to make it more confusing, and then launched the sponsor circles and the Unite for Ukraine process, which are individuals that can bring folks over kind of with the U.S. State Department. They've been vetted through the same process as people come over through resettlement agencies, but they're being supported individually.
So I have to ask you about the upsides and the downsides of what the State Department wants to do here, because as Alexandra's story indicates, on the one hand, it's obviously wonderful that you found a sponsor who was willing to do this. You have now been able to make a brand new life for you and your son. You're now working, helping people who are in a similar situation to where you were when you came to the country, not very long ago at all. But on the other hand, it seems to me like there's an element of chance at play. As Alexandra mentioned, not everyone may be fortunate enough to find a benefactor, a private party who's willing to bring them over. And, well, I was going to ramble on about other things that I thought might be minuses rather than pluses, but are there upsides and downsides to this approach?
Sure. I mean, I think any kind of reshift focus to refugees entering the U.S. is a bonus, right? With having complementary pathways that support the current U.S. resettlement system is a wonderful way to bring new arrivals, refugees, to our country, which is much needed and only can benefit our country. So in that way, it's a plus, re-looking at the program that has sort of existed the same for a long time. But there's a reason there's resettlement providers, right? So INE has been operating for over a century. We have deep knowledge of the complicated process it takes to bring someone over, the applying for benefits, state and federal, as you mentioned, and it can be long. We're used to serving people for up to 5 years. So I hope as they launch this program, the sponsor groups themselves understand kind of the complications and what it takes to help somebody get on their feet.
Before I go back to you, Alexandra, one more question for you. Is this going to increase the number of people who end up coming to the United States ultimately?
That's the intention, right? So the ceiling is set by the executive office, the president, each year, and anyone coming through a private sponsorship program is outside those numbers, so in addition to those numbers. So ultimately, this year, I believe they're focusing on 5,000 people in the private sponsorship program, which would be in addition to the ceiling, which was set at 125,000, which I don't expect to meet. But as
I was going to say, which we wouldn't necessarily get to.
We wouldn't meet, but as they scale up the program, the intention is to increase the number of people arriving.
Well, Alexandra, if you had not been put in touch with the individual who ended up sponsoring you, where do you think you would be today?
Well, I think probably we would stay in Bulgaria. Well, I could find some remote jobs there. And, well, we could survive there in theory, but it was a plan for a short term. But if I start thinking about my son's future, of course, I would like him to learn English, well, to have some hope and more opportunities.
Your son is, am I right, is he 4 years old now?
Yes, he's 4.
Okay, and as I ask this next question, I think we have some photos available that you have shared with us of your son making his way around Boston along with you, right, getting used to the area that he now calls home. Do you have, as we show those images, do you have any advice for people who may watch this program or may have heard about what the U.S. government's going to be doing and maybe thinking to themselves, oh, I like the idea of being a sponsor, helping someone who's a refugee get to this country. Do you have any counsel you would give them on the amount of responsibility they will be taking on if they do that?
I'm sorry, do you mean now refugees or people who want to help?
You actually guessed what my second question was going to be. I'm curious about both because obviously this is you have deep gratitude for the individual who helped you do this. I would think that some people, the individual who helped you clearly was ready to do what they needed to do and had the resources necessary to do it, but some people might not know how much is required resource-wise. So for both refugees and the people who might want to help them, any advice you would offer?
Well, of course. First of all, I think that English language is, well, can open the door for you if you want to integrate to foreign society, not just American society, every society, it's international language now. So learn English, try to integrate into American society, American community, and try to become self-sufficient. Because if you stay for a long time in a house, no matter how big house, with your relatives, probably not so close relatives or friends, well, after some period of time, it's getting harder and harder for everybody to live in the same area, and especially if your relatives should take care of you like you are, I don't know, 5-year child. So you should be independent and you should try all you can do to make steps to become independent, and as soon as possible, of course, to preserve your friendship, your good relationship with your relatives. So this is my advice for refugees. And for the sponsors, I can say, please don't be afraid of refugees. If you have opportunity to help, please help, because now, well, it's like the dark side. The dark side is fighting with light. You know, it's like something evil and something good. So let's build a chain of kindness. So this, my sponsor Artur Barlas, who I'm so grateful, he started this chain, and now he gave me an ability to help others too, and I will continue this chain of kindness. I mean, and I will be. My goal is now to do everything I can to help people in need like me. And honestly, before these terrible events, I didn't think that much about that, you know.
I wouldn't think you would have had reason to, and I think most people probably haven't thought about these things unless you're forced to.
But now everything, well, I see things differently, and probably it's, well, my life goal.
and you're doing it. Right?
I like to help other people.
Jessica, I want to give you the last word here. There's some counsel from Alexandra. Would you offer any counsel as this program is rolled out? And I know there's a lot we still maybe don't know about how it's going to work, but would you offer any guidance to people who might be thinking about playing the role that her sponsor played for her?
I mean, I would say similar to what Alexandra said. I think it's an opportunity to sort of see your community through a different lens. That's kind of how I talk to people who are interested in sponsorship. You know, you're seeing the way it might be like to be a newcomer in your community, and you really do get to look at it, the whole city as a different place. And I would say, you know, ask for help, reach out to those resources, which INE hopes to be to these sponsors or to any sponsors. So reach out to get connected so you know if you're not sure how to connect the people you're working with and supporting. Don't guess, because it could be really important for these folks. So connect with those resources. And then, you know, for the Welcome Corps sponsors, I think we're looking forward to being a community resource to those folks and to provide technical assistance and to learn together as we kind of create more capacity for people to come to the U.S.
All right, Jessica Cerrone and Alexandra Chapenko, thank you both, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, technology's come a long way since I was in school, a long, long time ago, with new advancements making it a whole lot easier to cheat on assignments and get away with it. You may have heard about the latest disruptor, ChatGPT, an artificially intelligent bot, which can write pretty much anything you ask it to, from a poem to a term paper. And unlike old-fashioned plagiarism, which schools have long had tools to screen for, educators are still grappling with how to detect AI-written text. Joining me to discuss are John Fitzgibbon, an associate director at Boston College's Center for Digital Innovation and Learning, and Laura Meckler, national education reporter for the Washington Post. Thank you both for being here. Laura, how concerned are people in the academy about this new technology and the effects it might have?
Well, I think there are two groups of people. There are the people who are concerned, or in some cases very concerned, and then there are the people who haven't thought about it yet. I mean, I think that this is just a widespread concern among professors, also to some extent among K-12 teachers, high school teachers, but really particularly in colleges, that, you know, this is just sort of another thing they have to think about and figure out how to get around, how to, some are thinking about it more creatively, some are thinking about it more defensively, but there is an awful lot of thinking about what do we do about this, you know, incredibly new potential to cheat, because I think any of us who have played around with this tool see how the responses and the results feel very human.
Can you just give a brief elaboration of that point you just raised before we get to John? What's it like to use this tool? How easy is it? I think for a lot of people who maybe haven't even looked at it, it might sound like, you know, it's daunting, intimidating, there's a high barrier to entry. So what is it like?
It is like, once you find the website, okay, so maybe that's the hardest part, but it's not that hard. Once you find the website, it's so easy to use. It's like there's a dialog box. Like, imagine you're texting with someone, but it's on your computer. There's a little box there, and you type something in. You type a question, or you type a prompt. You can say, could you write a, you know, something wacky, like write a poem to celebrate my mother's birthday. She likes cats. Or you can say, write a 5-paragraph essay about the origins of the American Revolution. And either way, it will do it. And is it great? No. Like, is it like something that's going to, like, you know, get you into Harvard? No. But is it plausible? Yes, absolutely. I was stunned.
John Fitzgibbon, is the quality that Lauren just touched on, Laura, is it going to improve quickly? Because I think of these things once and I'm not a technological expert, but I think of technology once the existing framework is in place as getting much better very, very fast. So soon, will it be able to get you into Harvard?
As I understand it, this is the version 3, and they're going to launch a version 4 in the next couple of months, and they're getting all these many billions from Microsoft. So I'm going to guess and say it's going to get an awful lot better because it's going to have more processing power, more information to process. But so I teach at BC myself and consult with many faculty, and I've never seen a technology raise up so quickly in people's awareness. Never seen it before. And literally last night, I raised it with my own class, teaching populism. And half the students hadn't heard of it, and the other half had heard of it. But what really struck me about it was that students are really interested in it and really interested in what I had to say about it. As in, many of them used the tool, they've experienced it, they saw the text that it generated, but they're like, well, what do I do with this? Is this good? Is this bad? Or whatever. And so I put in a midterm question that I used last year. That was a terrible question that gave a very good answer to it. And so I talked that answer through with students and said, here's why this is a good answer, but also here's why this is a bad answer. And I asked them to what grade they would give it. And that led to an excellent conversation about what I'm looking for from an essay. And there were some key things that were missing from it. It wasn't referenced. There was no examples. It missed out on all the main themes of the course that I had talked about. So I said, well, it failed because there was no referencing. So that's plagiarism. But there was no argumentation there, so it's just a C. But the students had all given an A because they were blinded by how well it was written. So it led to a great conversation about what exactly I'm looking for. So and all the faculty I consult with and I'm talking to about it is that this is a great opportunity for students to use it and give them the answers and say, here's what's good about it, here's what's bad about it. And the students are really excited to use it as a study aid to get a good start, as a summary tool, because a lot of them are complaining about Google and how using a Google search for things has become pretty difficult right now and it's clunky and everything like that. So they're seeing this as just another tool in their toolbox, and they're looking to faculty and looking to teachers to say, how can I use this? How can this help my learning? How can this help me learn more for your course?
Tell me if I'm wrong here, but as you describe that potential use, and then Laura, I want to come back to you to hear a little more about creative uses that other people are coming up with. But John, as you describe that potential use, it sounds to me like something that will be fruitful only for as long as this thing remains at the current level it's at, or maybe doesn't get a whole lot better. What happens, or how might you use it when this technology or similar technology, successor technology, is able to write a paper that does do the things you said it doesn't do right now, and maybe would be exemplary and get a student an A if they actually wrote it themselves?
Well, we think about a different format. So that's one of the things I've been thinking about, and quite honestly been very lazy in my midterms and finals. And I should have been thinking, I'll change it next semester, but it's just right there and set up. So what I did recently was I went to a new data visualization lab at Boston College, and I talked to Kate who works there, and I said, right, I want to give my students a data visualization assignment. This is a really important skill to have. I think it really follows really well with a political science course. And so I'm going to have the students go through all the case studies that we do, and we're going to learn how to code it. We're going to learn how to present it in data visually, and we're going to learn how to tell a story with digital tools, images, charts, all that kind of stuff. So it forces us to rethink what we're looking for in students. And I think this is a huge opportunity, especially in the liberal arts and the social sciences, to rethink what we're challenging students with. And instead of giving them a midterm or a final where they write an essay and that's it, it's all kind of done with, you get this great opportunity to think about, what can I do? What kind of potential is there to allow students to be creative, to do really engaging, amazing work with all these wonderful tools that we have? But that's really hard to do. And it works for 35 students in my course when I have the skill set to hopefully be able to guide through that. But if you have 400 students, Introduction to Macroeconomics, that's a different task. But faculty are really going to have to think really hard about how they're going to challenge students and task them with doing things in this day and age. And it's going to involve things like judgment, discernment, giving them really difficult problems that they've got to figure out. And that's hard work.
Hard work for the students and hard work for the instructors pedagogically. Laura Meckler, when you talked about people using this creatively, John's given a couple examples there, but are there any other ones that you've run into that you think are maybe heartening by those of us who are a little spooked, or for those of us who are spooked by this sort of technology?
Well, I think there are sort of a couple ways that I've heard people talk about this. There is the coming up with more creative questions so that the bot can't answer it. So how did you describe your thinking as you arrived at this answer? So that sort of a thing, something that really requires you to put yourself into it. That makes it a little bit more difficult for a bot to answer those kinds of questions. And just the higher level reasoning, it doesn't do very well when you start asking it to be more sophisticated. It does really well when you're asking for basic information, basic factual information, lists of things. But if you're asking for deeper analysis, that's when it starts getting caught. Now, to your point earlier, that may change over time as it gets better and better. But the more sophisticated the question, the harder it is for them to answer it. The other thing that I've heard is the less and I'll just add one other point, which is I've heard some teachers talk about the idea, that professors talk about the idea that, rather than just like deny it and fight it, acknowledge it's there. Why don't you use it and make that your starting point for an essay? So maybe the assignment is show me what you got from ChatGPT, and now show me what you did to make this deeper, better.
Interesting.
And that's a really important. That's a really important point, Laura, because it's in the elements where ChatGPT is missing this. To your point, Adam, about like, yeah, it's good, it's all right. So what's missing there? Is it that it doesn't have references? If it doesn't have that personal argument, that becomes a great teaching point. And like what I've seen what a lot of faculty are starting to do is they're asking the students, put this question to ChatGPT and then keep asking it questions, because that's how it works. You keep asking it questions and refines it till you get an answer you're happy with and you believe is a really good answer, and tell me why. And those are all examples of that thing we always hear about, critical thinking. And that's what this is really testing. Sorry, go ahead, Laura.
The other response you get from some is more of a defensive, how do I fight this response?
Yeah, that's my first question. That's my instinct.
So some would say things like, you have to write your answers by hand in class. So if you're doing an in-class assignment with a blue book, then you're not going to be able to use ChatGPT. So that would be an example. There's also some technology solutions that are out there. There are companies like Turnitin, which is already a company out there that detects plagiarism, that is working on new techniques to detect the use of artificial intelligence. Even OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT, is talking about trying to create like watermarks and things that other ways to defeat it, so that so it won't be misused. So there are also technology answers that are floating around about that. One of the more interesting ways to fight it that I found interesting, when I put into the ChatGPT, when I was writing a story about this, I put in, how do we prevent using your tool to cheat? And one of the suggestions from ChatGPT that came back was emphasize ethical guidelines and a spirit of conforming with expectations and an honor code. And if you have a culture of trust, students won't cheat. So obviously that would be the best solution.
I kind of love that. I will confess, I imagine the computer, sizzling and steam coming out. And so unfortunately, we have to leave it there. I've got about 20 more questions for each of you. Laura Meckler, John Fitzgibbon, thank you both.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to hear more from John and other education and technology experts from Boston College, you can catch their panel on ChatGPT next Thursday. For more info, head to bc.edu/events. That's it for tonight, but we'll be back tomorrow with the new head of the Commonwealth Fund, Joseph Betancourt, on his plans to tackle racial and economic disparities in healthcare. That more tomorrow at 7. I'm Adam Riley. Thanks for watching, and good night.